Hey everybody, welcome to the Get Wealth podcast. I'm your host, Brennan Wiersma. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Today I'm here with Paul Balyoz, my good friend from Arizona Real Estate Investors Association, and now I'm in your book club, so I've been able to get to know you through that and definitely learn a lot over the past, a couple months now, maybe weeks, just about real estate and kind of what you're doing, and you've given me ideas, so yeah, I'm excited to kind of share some of those things with people that watch this. So thanks for coming on the show today, man.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad to be here, Brennan.
So I guess let's just start off with what your experience in investing in general is. Like, have you always been interested in that? Was real estate your main thing from the beginning?
Yeah, I guess it all started when the kids were young, and my wife and I realized that we would need to save some money somehow for college for them. And of course, living a normal middle class life, we had two jobs, tons of credit card debt, very hard to save cash for anything, and just the usual story that everybody goes through. And so I started trying different things. We tried stock market investing, and I learned some strategies with that. We did like technical trading and stuff like that. But I found that I could make a little bit of money from that and then lose a bunch of money and back and forth. And I just couldn't seem to make that work in a way that would generate, more cash so that we could save for college. Of course, you can open, college savings accounts and different things that different like that for the kids that are, tax protected. But we wanted to generate the more money for that, and that didn't work so well. Um, I also at one point tried running my own business, but it was a small business where I am the one person doing everything, and I was able to make money at that, but nowhere near the order of magnitude of money I can make as a regular software developer in our society. So I went back to software development, basically. I've been doing that for 41 years now. So yeah, we eventually went to some real estate meetings and met a lot of interesting people and learned a lot of things about real estate investing and realized that it was way easier to do the things for real estate investing. And there wasn't super short time periods like with stock trading where you could miss out on something in just a day or two or hours even. With real estate, we could do things on the weekends and in the evenings and stuff since we both work full time. So yeah, that's kind of so we got started about 15 years ago doing that, and it was kind of just a slow start. But we found there's so many friendly people and so much knowledge out there. Everybody seemed interested in helping us learn what we needed to learn when we were getting started, and kept encouraging us. And we networked with some people and worked together with other people, and eventually learned everything we needed, and we're able to get more and more powerful as investors and learn the things we need to do and get to where we are today.
Yeah, that's so cool. So your main job for, I guess, the longer period of time has been software development. To me, that seems like, I probably could never do software development, but I think I could do something in real estate. Do you find that that's translated well into other things? Like real estate probably seems simple in a way compared to that, right?
Yeah, actually, that's pretty funny. The harder work I do is my software development work, basically from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Luckily, I'm able to work out of my house here. So I've got a computer just about 6 feet to my right. That is my work computer. And then this is my home and business computer. But yeah, it is much more complicated and difficult doing that work, especially since I'm not the boss in that work. I'm just the underling. I have to do, right? I have to follow the directions and orders and commands, and I have to stop working on the thing think I should work on in order to do the thing my boss has asked me to work on. That all that kind of stuff that we all suffer from, maybe knowing a better way to do something and you're not allowed to do that, things like that. But then when I run my own business, I can do things the way I want to, for better or worse, and learn from experience and so forth. So yeah, it's so I am still working full time, but our plans are such that I should be able to retire in about 4 years at age 59, so that won't have to work for someone else another day of my life at that point. That's our goal anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the way, I mean, just from what you've told me, it's not just like, your average retirement where you're kind of waiting for it to dwindle off until it runs out, and then by that time, you're not here anymore. It's that you have cash flowing assets that are going to continuously grow and gain equity and provide for you. And houses, like you even said before, are live longer than people do. So I mean, that's
Right.
a different type of retirement, it seems like. But I guess for people watching, why don't you say like what real estate you're invested in? Like how many properties do you own? Like what's your portfolio?
Sure. Yeah. Sherry and I have been focusing on investing in single family homes. So there's a lot of different kinds of property and real estate things you can do. So what we like to do is buy rental homes that are houses that we would have lived in ourselves at one point or another. So we don't, we avoid like the poorest neighborhoods and areas that we don't necessarily understand the tenants in the neighborhood. But we also avoid the very high-end property neighborhoods and so forth, like a lot of the fancy areas in Scottsdale. I don't buy homes in there either. So we just focus on the middle class neighborhoods that are decent, reasonable places with hardworking people that where we would have lived ourselves at one point or another. That's largely what we focus on. Yeah, so right now we own 15 properties, rental properties. We actually manage 19, or I should say oversee really, because some of them are like family members that we're working with. So we actually have a total equity right now of $1.2 million, which sounds like a gigantic amount. But what you've got to realize is we didn't have that much money to invest. So a lot of it is just equity growth over the last few years. As prices go up, then any properties you happen to own also went up in value. It's not that I did anything magical to get to that point. I just owned one property, then two, then three, and so forth. Eventually, all of them go up in value, and then the economy could turn and they all go down in value. I really don't care about that because I really focus on the rents. I want to see the rent coming in because that's the value to me. So we're actually 60% of the way out of the rat race. So this is something that I measure. That's my goal. In 4 years, I want to be completely out of the rat race, which means that all of our expenses are covered by the rents that we have coming in so that I don't have to work anymore. Because I also don't want to retire poor, which is something that our society kind of sets people up for. They try to make you think, yeah, when I stop working, I'll have some money coming in, but not very much. No, I want to have the same amount of money as I do now coming in. That's my goal anyway. And to build this up, I have built 14 LLCs to hold various properties. And we have 8 checking accounts across these different LLCs because they're technically businesses, right? And we have 3 lines of credit that we use for different purposes to buy property and whatnot.
Wow. Yeah, that seems like such an insurmountable thing to me.
Sounds ridiculous when I say it that way, but it just honestly over the years it just slowly built up to that point. You just start with what you got, what you need, and just keep adding to it as you need as you go along. So
yeah. So what was that first investment in real estate? I know you told me this story, but it's a pretty cool one. So like, what was that first property that you got, and how did that go?
yeah, that was actually the worst thing we ever did in real estate. Yeah, so what happened was around the time Sherry and I were getting married, I was moving in with her, and so I didn't really need my house. So she owned a home, I owned a home. So my house was just kind of sitting there, not really doing much, right? And so we realized, you know what, we probably ought to sell this house. But the thing is, it was right at the top of that last real estate boom, super bubble, super boom that we didn't know we were in. So the prices were super high on all these properties. So I sold that house literally at the top of the market, but I didn't know that's what was going on. And I sold it for so much money that I literally got a check for $105,000 I deposited into my account. And then I just kept staring at it in my bank account. I'm like, I can't imagine having this much money. Is this even legal? Like, is the bank insuring this amount? At one time, the FDIC limit on insurance was $100,000. So I called the bank. They said, no, we changed it to 250,000 a long time ago. So the Fed insures for at least 250K now per checking account or savings account. So I was like, okay, well, at least it's insured. So that was like crazy. So we had all that money and we knew we wanted to do investing. So we decided, hey, let's buy a real estate property, right? Because that's what you're supposed to do. I guess I'm supposed to invest this money. So we ended up buying a fourplex in South Scottsdale, kind of a rundown kind of area. We bought it for way too much money and had a mortgage on it in addition to the lots of cash that we brought. We had to fix up 2 of the units because they were uninhabitable, and we got it up to where we could have 4 people in it. 4 different, all 4 units were rented out, but we were just barely scraping by, maybe like $150 a month cash flow or something. It wasn't very much at all. And so we kept that going for a while, 6 months or a year, maybe a little longer. And then the downturn started happening and prices were falling. And I thought to myself, well, that's doesn't really affect me. I'm not buying or selling. I just need to keep renting it out at the current rental rates. Everything is just fine. Well, what happened is the other investors were buying all the fourplexes around ours at like half the price practically. So so they're buying it at a much lower price. Well, guess what? To attract tenants, they were setting the rents much lower than what we were getting for our rents. So we would have to lower our rent just to keep our tenants. Our tenants were moving out and going over there. So basically it became a negative cash flowing property. And I guess if you're a really advanced investor, you can afford a negative cash flowing property. You might do that. There might be a reason why you might want to do that, but not when you're a beginner. That wasn't working for us. And it's 4 units, not just 1, see? So that was pretty painful. So we ended up having to short sell that property to get rid of it. And short sell means that you're selling the property and you have to explain to the bank, you're not going to get all your money back from the sale. We had to sell it at a huge discount, the going prices in the market today. And the bank has to actually go along with that. They can't come after my house. They can't come after my car. I love how the laws work in the United States of America. The laws are set up so that if you need to fail, you can, and it's not the end of the world. You're not going to jail. You just made a mistake. You got to get out from under it and move on. And so that's what we did. Of course, my credit rating was damaged a little bit from a short sale, right? That's frowned upon. But for short sales, it goes away after like 2 or 3 years. Just disappeared off my credit report. And all the good things I've been doing this whole time with paying my bills on time and so forth, sticks around. So eventually it didn't hurt me at all to have that short sale. So we basically, the way I think of it is that we made $100,000 and we lost $80,000 in the short sale. And so it was a super painful experience. I'm laughing about it now because the emotional pain of it is gone, but it was painful for a long time. And it was probably a good year before we even considered doing anything else ever again. And I decided I needed to analyze that deal and figure out what the heck did I do wrong? Because if I can't figure out what I did wrong, I might make the same mistake again. Other investors aren't losing money hand over fist like that. What's going on? So during that year, we went to other meetings and we met other people. I read books and I learned things. Finally analyzed that deal and discovered that there were like 3 or 4 things that were signs that I should not have bought that property. It was way overpriced. There was not enough cash flow. There were so many indications that I should never have done it. So basically, I built my first spreadsheet of how to analyze rental properties and put minimums in there, a minimum $300 a month cash flow and a minimum 10% ROI, return on investment. And if you want, we can talk about more about those things. But These are standard terms in the industry, and that's kind of how we got started. We're like, we're not buying anything unless the spreadsheet says it's okay.
Yeah, and I've been using those spreadsheets, and they're magic. It's like you can plug it in. If the numbers work, they do. If they don't, they don't. Um,
Yeah.
but what the thing that hits home the most for me about that story is how you put it, where it's like you're not a bad person. You're not going to jail if you fail. You know, you're not. It's not the end of the world. Like
Yeah.
the America is set up to be able to fall down and build back up and do it over and over again. And it seems like everybody that's successful in real estate, or probably anything for that matter, but just for the people I talk to, like you, there's always that story of, the one that went bad, or like, but it's always what they learned from it. Cause that's the reason why you have all the, what you do, is because you were able to analyze it and, you know, put aside the emotions and look at the numbers and then move forward. So I think that's like almost important to plan for something like that. Like just get ready because it's coming. You're gonna get kicked in the teeth at least once.
Yeah. Yeah, it's scary to lose money. As a middle class person, we're trained not to ever, don't risk money, don't take the risk. That's terrible, right? Uh, because it's kind of thought of as scarcity. Money is scarce in my life, right? I have to work hard for my money, when you're working at your job. Well, if that's your only way to make money, yeah, that's true. Money is a scarce resource. You never have enough, and losing money is horribly scary. But you literally have to shift that mindset to a completely different view of risk is okay. Risk is okay if I learn what the risk is. How big of a risk is it, and what does everybody else do to try to protect themselves against that risk? And then if you do lose money, well, you can analyze and try to figure out what happened. Is there a way to avoid that loss or not? I mean, if you think of it, any training class you go to where you spend money, you've lost that money, but you gained the training, see? So
Mhm.
sometimes you can look at a failed deal that way. Once you get over the emotional pain and agony, which could take a while, then your mind can kick in and go, dang it, I got to figure out what I did wrong. I got to analyze that and never do that again. I may not know what I'm doing, but I'm not going to do that again. That's kind of the right attitude, I think.
Yeah. So that's probably, would you say, the biggest setback you've had in real estate so far was that deal?
Absolutely, yeah. We've been a lot smarter with all the deals we've done. We've done other things too. Upon occasion, we've done a couple flips where we broke even or even lost a little bit of money. The big thing that hits you that you forget about is taxes. You get taxed on profits, so that can whittle away your benefits a lot. Of course, there's things that's a risk, right? And there's things you can do to avoid those risks. For example, if you hold a property for a year rather before selling it, then it'll be taxed at a lower rate. Although the gap is shrinking now between that lower rate and your normal property tax, or I mean income tax. So it's not as powerful as the olden days. Um, and also, if you do real estate investing in your IRA or 401k, usually you have to roll everything to an IRA typically, which we do some of that as well. Then that's completely tax protected. So it grows a lot faster than your ordinary cash that you hold, trying to grow that with real estate investing.
Yeah, it seems like with real estate, there's so many opportunities for tax benefits. People, they're blown away when they see a guy like Donald Trump only paying like $700, but it's because he's, working the system so that he
Mhm.
has all of his equity in real estate and he's not being taxed on it because he's, investing it in the more real estate. And, eventually probably someone's going to have to pay taxes on that. But I think that's how that happens, right? Is because people are able to work the system with those tax benefits.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That there are literally laws in the United States that will help you avoid some or even all of your income tax, strangely enough. They're written laws into the tax laws of the United States. So my suggestion is that you can either ignore those laws or you can use them. You can learn about them and see how they could help you. So one of the powerful ones, of course, is that when you have a mortgage, you're paying money on a mortgage, any mortgage from as many houses as you have, all of those mortgages, the interest portion of that you're paying is a write-off, meaning that it's almost like you never made that money to begin with that you used to pay that mortgage. So first of all, that's useful on your own home. If you own your own house, right? It's a write-off, a little bit of a tax break. It becomes a giant tax break when you start owning real estate, rental properties, more and more and more. All of those mortgages, if there are any, have the interest part as a write-off. See, so it helps dramatically reduce what looks like your profit from the property. Also, there's an amazing thing where you can, they call it depreciation. You can depreciate a certain percentage of any property over, or like the whole thing over so many years. I think it's like 27 and a half years or some crazy number like that, where like if you divide the total price of the property by 27 and a half, it's still a pretty big number. That's the amount you can write off every year that you own that property. It's literally a tax write-off. If you have a good accountant or CPA, they know exactly how to do that for all of your properties, see. And so that what you're doing is you're actually postponing the tax on those. And so theoretically, if you ever sell that property, you're really supposed to pay that tax then. They figure when you have a big bucket of money from selling the property, then you'll be okay with paying that tax. But here's the funny thing. There are completely legal ways that you can cancel out that depreciation after it's piled up for a while. These are well-known methods that I was told from a professional CPA who helps investors all the time. And he's an investor himself. That's the best kind of CPA to have when they own real estate themselves and they know what they're doing. But there are things you can do that wipes that out and you never have to pay it ever. There's three things I can tell you very briefly. First, if you move into the house at some point and make it your personal residence for 2 years, I believe it's 2 years out of 5 or something like that, that switches it from being an investment property to being a personal property. And somehow that has an effect of resetting that number back to the beginning. I don't fully understand that part. Definitely check with your CPA on any of these strategies because, the laws are always changing with the IRS and all that. Another one is that if you pass away someday of old age, let's say, and your beneficiaries inherit your property, everything is reset for them. So if my children inherit these properties from me, see, we have a law in the United States. You don't have to pay your parents' debts. That's not a thing. If I owe a ton of money, that's not going to fall on my children's shoulders. That's not how America works. So it has to be reset at that point. It's very interesting. Both the profit of the property and the tax liability is reset when they inherit it. The last strategy is if you do a 1031 exchange into another property, this is part of the tax code called the Section 1031, is saying that, hey, I've got this rental property or properties, and I don't want these anymore. I want those over there. So I want to sell these and put all the value into those over there. So I'm selling and I'm buying. And the IRS thought about that and said, you really aren't getting any profit when you do that, are you? Okay, we're gonna let you waive all that tax until it just all like shifts over to the new properties. So you can 1031 exchange over and over throughout your whole life. And then when you pass away and your children inherit everything, it's that depreciation's gone. So that it's a huge amount of write-off that you get. So I have a feeling that many investors larger than I am who have a ton of properties probably don't pay much income tax, if anything at all, just from all the write-offs.
Yeah, there was a guy I interviewed a couple weeks ago, Joshua Steinberg. He's got like 2,000 units or something like that. But he was saying that he's not paying hardly anything on his tax or his paying any taxes on his real estate right now. But he's just, he's putting it, he's 1031ing in the next one and the next one and the next one. So eventually he's going to have all of this real estate and it's going to have to be paid for. With the taxes are going to have to be paid at some point. It almost seems like the the government employee that wrote the law about that wasn't an investor and didn't think that these super real estate savvy people would take advantage of it and just keep using that over and over again.
Yeah, it seems funny. It seems like somebody would have noticed by now. So I asked my CPA about that, and what he said is, you don't understand how many politicians themselves have tons of property investments. So they would not take away a law that they're not going to close a loophole that they themselves are using constantly. And what he said was, if they ever close that loophole, they'll probably open another one, and I'll let you know what that is when I find it. He told me.
That's a good
So
CPA.
I was like, wow, I think I need to stay with this CPA. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my attitude is you need to do everything above the law, in line with the law. Do not break the law. Don't lie, cheat, steal. That's very short-sighted to try to do things like that. It's much, much better if you cooperate with people and cooperate with the laws of the United States or whatever country you're in, because you can make the most money over time by doing that. It's really worth sticking with the laws, but that also means using them to your advantage. Why not use advantages in the law?
Yeah, no, for sure. And just on a moral aspect, you don't want to lie or cheat. I was talking to Alan, our mutual buddy, Alan. He was telling me, we were talking about wholesaling, and I was kind of asking him about the efficacy of it, and like if you should say you're a wholesaler and like where that line is. And I mean, of course, you should never blatantly just lie, but he was telling me that he thinks that lying can literally cause cancer. Like it's just such a bad thing to do. So if any part of business you find yourself doing that, it's not something you want to be a part of. Which I'm not saying that's what wholesaling is, because that's kind of what I'm trying to do in my free time. But it's kind of interesting to think about, because there definitely are opportunities that you could take advantage of that maybe you could even get away with. But I mean, in the long run, it's probably not good.
Yeah, it can be tempting, but see, if you and I are working on a real estate deal together, it takes time to build up that trust and that knowledge. Like for me to learn what you know, you to learn what I know, and what you can trust me to do, what I can trust you to do. As long as there's that trust, we can not just make money from this one deal, but many more deals to come, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like investing time and energy in a relationship. And then if you rip off the other guy, you just burn that whole relationship. They're never going to work with you again. They can't trust you. And they'll probably tell their friends about you, and they won't trust you either. So it's very bad to do that, in my opinion. And there are, once in a while, you'll hear in real estate groups about one individual that took advantage in some way, and news spreads about that person, and people won't work with them after that. So it's tempting to want to make money quick, right? Everybody wants a get rich quick scheme,
right,
or a get famous quick scheme. And the truth is that only happens to very few people. What I want is wealth for myself and for you, see? And really the better way is the hard work it takes to learn all the things and follow the laws. You may not make the extra $3,000 because you didn't rip off the other guy, but you're actually going to make $33,000 more dollars because you work with him on 5 more deals. That's my attitude.
Yeah, and I've noticed you're really big on being, beneficial for everybody when you're investing. I remember you were talking about, maybe you can explain that whole situation, but you were investing in a property and it was like an owner finance type of thing where you made sure that the rates, they weren't paying anything that were extraordinarily high, but you were making money and you were helping them out at the same time. Really, that an ideal investment situation is everybody wins.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's true. And yeah, you have to factor in what's going on with all the people involved. And so there are plenty of times in real estate where you can be in a situation where everybody wins. And I love thinking about like flipping a property where you buy a property in a horrible condition, maybe that nobody else wanted to buy. If all the carpet is ripped out of the bedrooms, then like people with uh, certain types of credit can't even buy those properties. Like only an investor could really buy something if it's in a bad enough shape. but like I know what I'm looking at. So I can buy a horrible looking property when it's basically a good property, just needs work. So you buy that terrible property with junk in the front yard and trees haven't been pruned for 2 years. And then you fix it all up inside and out. You give it fresh paint, fix everything, clean up the yard, get rid of the junk. It costs money to do all that. But because you bought it at a low price, you're doing all those repairs and all this work on it, cleaning it up, and then selling it or putting a renter in place, however whatever your exit strategy is. If you think about that, everybody wins because the neighborhood is winning. You're cleaning up the horrible property on the block, see, that nobody else had the ability to do. And I've had times where a neighbor will come over while I'm working on the property and come over to thank me, thank you. This place has been a mess for 5 years and somebody finally is cleaning it up. Well, I feel sorry for the poor people maybe that lost the property in order for this to happen. Because very often that's what happens, that there may have been a death in the family or a divorce or something, which enabled a wholesaler to get this property at a low price and sell it to me, the investor, at a medium price, kind of, maybe 70%, 75% undervalue, so that I can do what I do and put a renter in it or sell it at full price, but not exactly full price. I won't sell it exactly the highest price I can get. I want to price it a little lower so it'll sell quickly and be a better deal for someone. I don't want the highest rents I can get. I want a little bit below the highest rents I could get, because that way my tenants will stay there for 4, 5, 6 years rather than moving every year and I have the place empty for a month every year. That's actually more costly than being able to keep your renter at a slightly lower rate. If you do the math on it, you realize you want to keep, you don't want to thrash so much. You want to keep your renters in there, especially when you start getting more and more properties. If every year you had 15 properties with renters coming and going, it would drive you insane.
Yeah. I want to get into how you manage all those 15 properties, but first I was going to go from that. So we had that setback story. What's been the best deal you've been able to figure out in real estate, like your biggest success story?
Sure. Well, every deal is completely different, and it's such an adventure. That's part of the fun of it, I think. See what's going on and what problems come up and what interesting things happen. I'll tell you two different ones real quick. The one that made the most money for me is actually a deal that we're just closing right now in Tucson, where we had, because we talk about what we do to our friends, we actually had a friend come, my wife's friend come up to her and say, hey, my father just passed away and we're going to be selling this house down in Tucson. Would you like to buy it? So we were like, sure, we'd like to look at it and we'd like to talk about what price. So yeah, she ended up selling it to us at a really low price for the market, almost half price, a little over half price, which is astounding. Like if it was fully fixed up, it would get about twice that amount of money. So absolutely, we wanted to buy it. So we did. And she actually, at the time, she had two offers, one from another investor and one from us that came in at the same price. And she was like, okay, I'm selling it to my friend. So we're like, yes. So anyway, we fixed it up. At first, we thought we would be renting it out, but we finally decided just to sell it because the market has been growing so much right now. Right now is March 2021, and the prices have just been going up and up with real estate. So we decided to sell it. We're going to clear $60,000 on this property. So that's the best flip we ever did. And I had to really decide whether to flip it or, because I'm trying to buy rental properties. That's my goal, to increase my cash flow, because when I get my cash flow high enough, then I can retire. But this was too hard to pass up, to just clear a bunch of cash. And then I can use that to buy another rental property if I want, that kind of thing. Also, I'm going to pay down some debts that I have, which will help lower my monthly costs. So that's good. Okay, so the other interesting one I want to tell you about was a number of years ago, a property in Glendale, Arizona, which is kind of northwest of the Phoenix metro area. This property was a pocket listing from a realtor. So this realtor knew that we were investors, and someone came to her to sell the property. And instead of putting it on MLS, she talked to her investor friends like us, and we decided to buy it. So it was a good price. I don't remember the exact numbers on this one. This was over 5 years ago, but it was a good deal to buy. Um, Amazingly, this lady had kept, I guess she was going to move into a retirement community and didn't want her home anymore. She kept immaculate shape of everything in this house, inside and out. So we almost had to do nothing. We spent maybe $2,000 just with little touch-ups, and turned around and sold it for a lot more money. But the interesting thing, right in the middle of that, when we had only owned it for like 1 week, and by the way, when you're doing that, you get insurance on the property, right? You don't want a single day where your insurance is lapsing. So you're in contact with your insurance company even before you're buying it, and you tell them the address, and they're figuring out how much it's going to cost and all that. So we had our insurance on day one when we bought that thing. A week after we bought it, before we had even done anything to it, the realtor called us and said, I have some bad news for you. And we were like, oh, what? She says, somebody ripped apart the AC unit that's in the backyard and stole all the copper out of it. This is a normal thing that happens sometimes, that people will just shred the thing and pull out all the copper tubing and then sell it for scrap for like 20, 30 bucks or something.
Crackheads, right?
Basically, like yeah, exactly. So we were like, wow. So first of all, I thought, I got to see this for myself. So I headed over there. It's at the time, it was about a half an hour drive from us. So we went over to look at it. And the two metal halves of that outdoor unit, which, it's basically just a big fan that like cools warms or cools, whatever you're doing at the time, pumps the liquid back into the house for the air conditioning unit. The two halves were just torn apart and sitting on the ground. And then the thing was stripped. There was wires pointing everywhere, and it was in horrible shape. So we're like, oh God, because like air conditioners are one of the expensive things that a house might need.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, first of all, we're going to be able to sell this and make a bunch of money. Well, obviously we have to fix this. So we started making phone calls, and to get a new unit was going to be like at least a couple $1,000s, maybe more. But we had some friends now, from these real estate meetings that we've been going to. And I knew that a friend of another investor was a guy who does a lot of AC maintenance. And he's like a helper of this other investor guy, because he's trying to learn investing himself, but he's an AC maintenance guy. So we got his number and called him, and he said, we're like, hey, can you help us? We don't need a full air conditioner. We just need this outdoor unit, the heat exchanger or whatever they call it. And he said, oh yeah, actually we've got a used one that's dented on the side. If you don't mind that, it works perfectly. We could just use that. I was like, yes, how much is that? And he said, well, I'll bring it over and install it for like 800 bucks. And we're like, okay, sure. Yeah, that'll work. So we did that. So we even saved a little bit of money on that completely unknown problem. And like, there was nothing else that happened with that property. We were able to sell it and make the money, and just lost a little bit from that. So that happens sometimes. Unexpected things will cost you money on a property deal. And that's never happened since then either to anything we've done. It's just one of those one-off crazy things that can happen.
Yeah. It kind of seems like the deals sometimes just fall into your lap a little bit. Like you put up the work up front, and you get your name in investing, and the people, but like the one you just said where your friend was just like, hey, I got this screaming deal for you. You're going to make 60 grand just basically for doing hardly anything. Like, did you do the repairs on that house even? Was that
for the Tucson one, the 60 grand? Yeah, I did a little bit. I used to do a lot of the repairs myself because I'm also like to be a handyman, and I do electronics and other stuff, electrical work. But the thing is, this is further from us than a lot of properties, and I don't have as much time as I used to. So we actually hired a general contractor to go in and bring in all his guys to do all the things. We just went through and made a punch list. Here's all the things we want. And then we walked the house with him and said, do this here, do this there, and all that. We bought the appliances ourselves, picked them out. We found some used appliances, some new appliances, stuff like that, just to modernize the kitchen. But yeah, and I did a little bit of work. I ran some conduit to, there was a like a shed in the backyard that was in pretty good condition. We didn't want to destroy it, so we left it and we just fixed it up. And then I made some conduit because there was just Romex hanging out out and with it getting rained on and everything. So I did that and better. But yeah, so I'll do little things. I'll pick out 2 or 3 things that I love to do, and then the general contractor can do all the rest of it. Otherwise, I become the bottleneck in the project because I'm way slower than a contractor is. I feel like I do better quality work and it takes 4 to 5 times longer. So let's let those guys do it. They're good, that's good enough. They're good at what they do. I'm kind of a perfectionist, and that doesn't work well for flipping or whatever you're trying to do with real estate.
Yeah. Do you think that people get scared away from real estate because they think they have to be good with doing construction or handyman stuff?
Yeah, I think that's part of it is they think I can't possibly get good at all that stuff. How's that going to happen? But the truth is this is really largely a relationship oriented business, but totally friendly, totally exciting. There's energy behind it. Like, if you have friends and you're just talking about regular stuff, that's a certain level of fun. But if you have friends where what you're talking about is literally going to make you money when you do it, and everything you're talking about is real, and you know what the unknowns are. I don't know about this, but I know about that. Who can we talk to get the answers, right? It's exciting. It's like a whole nother layer of fun because you may have 10 different problems you haven't solved yet, but when you do, the money is behind it. So it's really exciting. So yeah, I think beginners do get stuck on a whole number of things, thinking you have to do all the work, like the self-employment idea. Please don't do it that way. Pick things that you love to do, that you want to do, that you're good at doing, but let the experts do all the rest of it. You definitely need a professional inspector to tell you what's wrong with the property. Even now, after 15 years, I am not good at telling how many years are left on a roof. I can tell if a roof is in horrible shape, but that's about it. So I have inspectors that come out and pay them some money and they'll see what's wrong with the place. So trust your experts and network with people. And these other people, they will love to work with you because they're going to make money and you're going to make money. It's a good deal all around. Like when I was talking about that, about how it's a good deal for everyone, it's really a win-win when you're doing these things right. You make it a win for everybody, including the contractors. You want them to get paid and paid on time. And the numbers need to work for you so that you can afford to pay them. And then like we were hiring contractors to fix houses during the middle of the downturn back in 2009, 2010. We were doing real estate investing and we were helping keep people's jobs at that time because of this that we were doing. And I thought about that. I'm like, as a software developer, I couldn't be paying for someone's salary to help keep my friends and people in our society afloat. I can't afford that. But if I'm doing real estate deals where the numbers make sense and the math is there and the money's there, absolutely, I'll get a contractor to work on this one, a contractor to work on that one, stuff like that. At one point, we were flipping 2 properties at a time over and over again and working full-time at our jobs, if you can believe that. Wow. So over time, you can learn how to do this. It's kind of nice though, because you now, because you don't have time to do everything, you are the commander in chief. You are the one telling everybody what to do. I need these guys to be out first, and then those guys are coming out, and then this. Okay, what's the holdup with this? All right, why are the supplies not here yet? Stuff. It's kind of fun. I get to be the boss for a change, which I never was able to do at a normal job as a software developer.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing in the world to me, being able to do that and create something from literally just an idea and then building it into something that's now paying for other people to, have dinner. That's America right there.
Yeah, it is. It really feels like service. You're taking a broke down house and making it good again. Yeah, and as an investor, I'll go in a home and if I see holes punched in the sheetrock and crayons scribbled all over the wall and the kitchen counter is smashed with a hammer, like that doesn't bother me at all because I was going to replace all that stuff anyway. Yeah. It's really hilarious sometimes that would scare the crap out of somebody thinking of moving in there, right? Well, we're going to rip out all these walls and doors and things. It just depends. You have to decide what you're going to do on the property. We save as much as we can, but yeah, there's plenty of times where like an old Formica kitchen counter looks like the 1960s. You got to rip that out and put in something else, granite maybe, have a granite guy. So, and then you have the fun of going out and picking out the granite, and then the granite guy will cut it spend about a week or so cutting it, and then bring it over and install it. It's really cool. It's neat to actually have the money to do fun things like that. How often do you have money to do that in your own home? Maybe once every 20 years or something, if you're lucky, and then you put it on credit cards and pay that for a long time, right? But this way, it's the money is literally there because of how we're investing.
Yeah, that's a revolutionary idea. Like, if for me, getting introduced to real estate like that is just, that's the coolest thing. There's nothing else. You got to do that. That's I don't know why anybody would not want to at least think about it. So you have all these properties that you have at one time, 15 you said, and you're managing a little more than that. How are you able to do that? How have you automated that to where it's more passive, or is it just a constant workload?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It kind of just transforms over time slowly. I mean, you just start out the best way you can and keep track of things. You have one LLC, maybe a one checking account. That's how we got started. And just do everything in there to get started. And keep your finances separate. You have your business with his business finances. Then you have your personal life with your personal finances. Keep them separate just to get started. If you have to loan the business money, that's a loan, which will be the first thing paid back as you actually make money. That way you don't get taxed on it because it was a loan, see? And then, so you call it a loan when you pay the business, and you call it an owner draw when you pull money out. At least that's how we got started. But yeah, just over time, you start building these things up. Like, I think in terms of check registers, the little book you get with your checking account, and you've got to put the entry in there, the date and the amount of money and who was it and what was it for. So I just built Excel spreadsheets to start with, which you can use any spreadsheet system. There's free ones out there, right? Google Sheets is one of them. Apple has a really good worksheet kind of thing. But yeah, just make a check register for yourself. So you just have positive numbers, negative numbers as you deposit money and withdraw money from your account. That's a great way to get started. But just keep track of it all. And when you get the statement at the end of the month, either by paper or digitally, then go through and make sure you didn't make any mistakes, and make sure the bank didn't make any mistakes. Everything needs to make sense to you. Just keep it up to date. So you're really balancing your finances down to the penny. Every penny makes sense. If it does, I had to do it at the beginning, go to the bank and go, I don't understand this on the statement. What does this mean? And they'll help you out. Bankers are happy to help with stuff like that. They're part of your team that way. The bank is part of your team because they're valuable with money. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so yeah, you just start working out systems for how you're going to manage all this stuff. So now I literally have a spreadsheet for every separate bank account and line of credit. And then I put all my files in Dropbox. So this is the way I do it. Do it however you want. But my principles are, my laptop should be able to explode and burn up in a fiery fireball, but I didn't lose anything. How am I going to do that? So the way I decided to do that is everything stays in Dropbox. But I want to have icons on my desktop of the main things that I work with constantly, like all these checking accounts, right? So I have shortcuts because I use Windows 10. So in Windows 10, they're called shortcuts. On Macs, they're called symlinks, I think, or something like that, where you can have an icon on your desktop that's not the real file, but it points to where the real file is. So it points over to the Dropbox file. So I have them arranged on my desktop, all the checking accounts, and then a folder for every LLC. They're all shortcuts pointing to where the files really live. So, and I've had problems before where something wiped out my icons or whatever. You can have a hard drive blow at any moment. I'm using an SSD laptop. It's really nice. super fast, but SSDs blow out supposedly in fewer years than a hard drive does.
Mm.
But you can lose a computer anytime. I can have my laptop stolen. I know people that have had that happen. So I need to be okay if we lose everything. If the house burns to the ground, it needs to be okay. So Dropbox plus a physical backup of all my files that I do about once a month onto a external hard drive, and then I store that in a safe location. So I don't ever want to lose anything, even if the Dropbox company goes under and I'm not allowed to get to my files. That's just what I try to do there. But so you spend a little time thinking about that. Don't worry about it at the beginning. But as your finances get more extreme, you start thinking, gosh, I've got a lot of money wrapped up here. I don't want to lose it all. How do I never lose all my stuff? So yeah, so some of it is organized as paper files, and some of it is digital. And we're trying to move as much as possible to digital. But I'm an old guy and I still love paper. So I still like writing notes with paper sometimes and keeping track of stuff. There's a lot of, I don't know how much you want me to talk about, but I've talked before about my tickler system, which is a time-based reminder system. Because one of the things you realize is I can't remember all the times I need to pay all the bills. So I need to automate that, right? So use your bank's online bill pay system. Very often they have a recurring payment mechanism. Set up any mortgages you have on a recurring payment system and let the bank automatically pay it for you. Now you just got to make sure there's enough money in the account all the time. So you just got to come up with a system where there's always more than enough money sitting there so you don't bounce any checks. And some of that is iterative. You're going to make a mistake and then you got to figure out what you did wrong and just keep working at it and figure out how to do it. I have a hard time remembering stuff more than most people. And so I spend more time on my business automating things whenever possible. Sometimes it's digital, sometimes it's files, paper files. But when I'm done, I literally can just read my own instructions to myself. Like today it's actually the 20th right now. So this morning I pulled out my 20 folder. And in my 20 folder, there was like 4 things that I need to do around the 20th. And I had forgotten about all of them, of course. So I don't have to remember them. I just follow my own instructions from the past me, set up what the future me needs to do. I try to be as kind as I can to the future me because I'm going to be him someday. That's my idea. I want to be happy in the future, not sad. So I need to keep all the balls in the air. And if there's problems, if you bounce a check, if you forget to pay a bill, you just got to deal with it. Pay it quickly and then go back and figure out what happened and fix your system. It's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, those are a lot of those little things that might be a slight inconvenience at the moment, but then later on when you got 15 rental properties and all these things to keep track of, probably save yourself a lot of headaches doing that.
Yeah. And we have management companies for a lot of the properties. I'm not trying to self-manage 15 to 19 properties. I have a friend that self-manages 32 properties. They're a couple, they're retired. They never need to work again for money. They have more money than anybody I know. But yeah, 30 properties is enough, but they're all here in the Phoenix area. They manage every single one themselves. They have all their systems in place. They do the same thing every month. They collect the rent at the same time. They drive all the properties and various ones at different weeks of the month. And they knock on doors and tell them to trim the weeds and pull the weeds and trim the bushes or whatever, So they're kind of pushy about how they do their management, but that's the system that they develop. Now, Sherry and I don't want to work that hard. So we're going to try to convert everything to as passive income as possible for retirement, because I've got other plans in retirement, things that I want to do that's not necessarily real estate. But I love real estate so much, I'm sure I'll keep my hand in there as long as I can.
Yeah, just all about having that freedom, right? You want to be able to not if you.
That's really what you're buying, yeah. You're buying not have to be under the thumb of a boss, but really you're getting all those hours of the day back. So I recommend people getting into real estate or any investing, seriously think about, if you're good at this, if you succeed and you do the work, what is your life going to look like? What are you going to do with all your time? If everybody around you has to work, but you don't have to work, what are you going to do? it's kind of fun to think about. It sounds like a dream in a cloud, like it could never happen. But seriously, think about it. Do you want to work at a service organization maybe for part of the time? Do you want to create your own service organization out of thin air? Maybe you have ideas of things that don't work right in our dumb society or whatever. Figure out, okay, you know what? I'm going to be the one that fixes that. And then it hits you. I don't have any time to fix anything. And then you realize, oh, okay, maybe if I get out of the rat race and have money coming in every month nonstop because of my investments, wow, now I can do all the things I want to do. I want to travel. See, my wife is real big on traveling the world. We're going to visit every state in the United States in our first year of retirement. We're just going to drive around visiting everywhere. I want to see every state.
Wow.
So things like that. You could set a goal like that, which is almost unachievable until you're retired.
Yeah, it seems unachievable until you've done the little things over time that they add up, and then all of a sudden you where you're at, and it's like, oh, how did I get here? Type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so proud of us being 60% out of the rat race now. It's, you realize if you can get halfway there, you can probably get the rest of the way there. Especially since you have way more money coming in, but you're still working. Then really we have tons of money coming in right now. So we're just trying to get those more properties, which is hard to do as the prices go up. But there can be price adjustments. The prices could go down in the upcoming years. We don't really know. Some people are saying there's going to be a market correction. Some are even saying soon. I don't know the answer to that. We just try to deal with whatever happens, and then don't be in the middle of a gigantic property repair when there's a downturn. So like maybe for the next couple of years, avoid gigantic projects like adding another story to a building or adding another bedroom bathroom, unless it can be done in like a month, month and a half, 2 months. So what that you got to kind of consider that. But because prices are so high now, you have to throw a lot of cash into a deal just to be able to hold a rental property. At least that's what I'm seeing now. It's just more costly, so I can buy fewer properties that way.
Yeah, and with real estate, there's always an opportunity, right? Like there's in a recession, it's Black Friday. You go and everything's 50% off. But
Yeah,
and then right now, when the market's so super hot and you can't get anything at the asking price, well, now there's a bunch of people that are ready to buy. They're looking for a deal and they got cash on hand. And so
yeah,
there's an opportunity everywhere. It's just a
yeah.
matter of being in the right place and kind of knowing the right people. I don't want to take too much of your time, but there was a couple more questions I wanted to make sure I asked. As far
Sure.
as someone listening to this who has maybe never even considered real estate, what advice would you give them, and maybe like some creative ways to get started?
Yeah. Well, there are some misconceptions that beginners maybe are thinking. One is you must have money to make money. That's completely false. That's not true at all. There are at least two ways you can make money in real estate without having any money. And the first one is wholesaling, which you and many other people do. And it's pretty exciting because the whole idea of wholesaling is you're going to work hard to find people who are out there right now want to sell their homes at a big discount. Now, why would someone sell their home at a discount? Well, maybe they just got a new job in another state and they better sell their home real fast and move. They got to get out of here. They can't be playing games with selling it to someone on a contingency and then the contingency is going to fall through, stuff like that. They need to move it now. There are many different reasons why someone might get rid of a property that they don't want. Maybe it's been in their family for 50 years. They haven't paid a mortgage for years, right? And they want to sell it and they'll sell it for almost anything. They just want a bunch of cash for it. Another example of people that want cash for properties without caring about the price necessarily is when children inherit a property from their parents. If there are 2 or 3 children and they inherited this house, none of them want to live there. They all have their own lives now if they're adult children, right? And they're arguing about, you sell it, no, you sell it, you go clean it up. I don't want to clean it up. I don't have any time. You want me to use my vacation time for that? So they're already at each other's throat and they just want the money out of the place. But a wholesaler can say, whoa, 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 why don't I buy it from you super fast for cash, this amount of cash. I won't put any contingencies on it other than that. Um, I would love to go in and look at it, but don't even worry about moving the junk. Leave all the junk there. I'll get somebody in to just take the valuables that you want for yourself. We'll clean everything else up. And they'll be like, wow, really? You'll just take it off our hands? That's great. And then, and the hope is that they'll sell it to you at a screaming deal, because the wholesaler is trying to get a screaming deal and sell it to an investor at a good deal. Let the investor do all the cleaning. As a wholesaler, I don't want to do any work on this thing. I'm buying it, I'm selling it as fast as I can to investors who, by the way, will also pay me cash for the property. And then I get to keep some of the money in the middle. Wholesalers maybe only want to make 5K, 10K, sometimes more than that on a property, because they've got to keep that price low when they're selling it, because they want to sell fast. You want to get it fast and sell it fast. It's an interesting idea. And every month there are people trying to get rid of their properties. Just, are you going to be the wholesaler that finds that deal?
Yeah.
So that's one way.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, those closings happen at the same time. You're not bringing a dime to the deal. You get the sale and the purchase happen together at the same title company the same day, so that literally money is flowing past you and you get a check for the money in the middle between the buy and the sell price. So it's kind of a neat idea. It's a lot of work to get those deals, but when you do, you make chunks of money. And if you can save those up for your own rental properties, that's outstanding. That's the best thing you can do. Another way to make money is to buy less expensive things like plots of land, parcels of land. So there's a whole technology out there called land flipping or land wholesaling, where if you can find people that don't want their plots of land anymore, again, maybe they have it fully paid off, they just want to get rid of it. Very often those people are in other states, so they don't even know what's going on in the area. And you want to buy that at an unbelievable deal, sell it to a person who actually wants the land, who actually knows the value and will benefit from it. So you're putting it to good use, and because you're enticing them with what are all the things in that area, what could they do with it? It's great for camping, great for horses, or whatever. It could be a plot in the middle of nowhere. It could be a plot literally that's part of a housing area. They just never built a house on that particular spot. Those are called infill lots, by the way. Now those can go for a lot of money too. Those cost more, but then you can sell them for more also. But the idea there is you're not going to do any work on the property. You just need to understand it to make your offers. Some people will mail out thousands of offers a month to landowners, hoping that somebody will call them back. Call me at this number and let me negotiate the deal. And if you can get a good deal on the property, you'll be able to sell it pretty quickly to someone else. That's the hope. And there's a little tweak inside there that you don't even have to buy it. You can say, I want to sign an option to buy. So this is one of those creative deals where you don't want any risk, do you? You don't want to be like committing to buying it, even if you say 2 months in the future, because I need 2 months to find that buyer to buy it from me. Well, what if you just signed an option agreement? That says I have the option to buy it for 2 or 3 months, but if I choose not to, there's no commitment, say. So you agree on a price, you get that option, now you fight to find that buyer to sell them for more money, that kind of idea. It's kind of an interesting thing. There's a lot more detail to it, and there are people that teach classes about this. Jack Bosch, for example, teaches a class in the Phoenix area, and I think he tours around the country teaching land flipping. I'm not any good at that, but some people love doing stuff like that. Those are great ways to get started for nothing. But really look at what it is you have. Everybody has some skill or some asset that they haven't thought about when they're getting into real estate. What is it about you that you could offer an investor? So you don't just ask an investor for tons of advice or necessarily to follow them around and stuff like that. Sure, you could learn a lot that way, but what value are you giving them also? They're more enticed if you have value you can bring. One thing that people who have jobs can bring that they never thought about is when you have a good job and you're making money, you can get loans from banks for houses at unbelievably low prices right now, like 3%, 2.9% interest rate. Many investors who don't have a full-time job can't do that. They can't get deals like that. So what if you went in on a deal with an investor where they're doing all the investory stuff, which you're going to learn from, but you're helping bring the mortgage because you get a better deal than they do. So you're helping them put together a deal, and you're partners in some way. You'll have to decide what that agreement is between you. But and it should be in writing. Always get an agreement in writing. Who's bringing what, and what is the expectation? What are you trying to do with the property? What, how do you decide when you want to sell it, and so forth? Write it all down. Agree on it up front. But there's a lot of things like that. So, and I guess my last piece of advice for new people is don't be too scared about investing. Find what your emotional limits are, what your emotional fears are, and address them. So if you're terrified of bringing $10,000 to a deal, because that seems like a huge amount of money when you're just getting started. Now that I've been doing it over and over again, it's not a lot of money to me, but when you're getting started, that's hard. So how do you guarantee no one's going to just steal your money, right? If that's a fear you have, get the answers, ask the questions and get the answers. And you'll learn, yes, if you're handing over money, you need a promissory note where they're agreeing that you handed them that money. And this is the outcome we're trying to do with that money, that they owe you that money back or some, equivalent value. So yeah, and then once you learn how does everybody else do this so that they're not afraid, then work on the fear itself. Find a way to get over that fear. If you need to do visualizations, if you need to talk to a counselor, there's no embarrassment, no fear for getting over problems that we have. Like that. We've all had things like that. I've had to get over a lot of limitations in my own psyche related to money and working with other people and stuff like that. We all have hangups about things like that, but find them, discover them, and then work on them to get over them. And so I feel like real estate in some ways is a healing process too, that I can learn to trust people, but do my own due diligence to make sure it's the right deal for me. Trust but verify is the motto that a lot of people say. So I trust that you're telling me the truth. And I'm also going to verify it outside of you to make sure you're telling me the right thing.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's a lot of really good tangible information for someone that's listening to this, trying to think about how they can get started. And I think there are so many opportunities. It's just a matter of having the motivation and the discipline to be consistent and find those opportunities, like finding the deal or making the connections. And I think you're a good example of how, really it just takes a little bit of effort and some creative thinking. So yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for that. And okay, so I guess the last two questions I would like to ask: what's a good book you recommend about real estate, and then what's your definition of wealth?
Nice. Yeah, my absolute favorite book, especially for beginners, is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. In fact, I started the meetup in the Phoenix area for a book club where we read the Rich Dad Poor Dad book last year, chapter by chapter, and talked about it. And now we're reading the follow-up book to that, Cash Flow Quadrant, by the same author. Those are really good books. I recommend reading the Rich Dad Poor Dad book at least once, maybe even 2 or 3 times. I've read it about 5 times now because more soaks in the further I go. In this book, he literally helps you understand how rich people think about money. It is not how you and I think about money. And I've found now over the years, I'm starting to think like a rich person. I'm learning how to do that. But it takes work, it takes practice and trust, but also seeing it happen for yourself. And you start realizing that bunches of money is not wealth. Cash flow, meaning money coming in regularly every month, that's the real wealth. So that's my definition of wealth. When you have enough cash flow coming in every month reliably, consistently from your investments, and it could be any set of investments at all, that you are holding and owning these investments so that they're bringing in money every month. Well, how many investments do you need to have more money than you need to live in your life? In fact, everybody should do the math. Sit down with all of your expenses, figure out what are you spending money on? What is your average monthly expenses? And you've got to factor in, of course, annual costs, quarterly costs, like sometimes HOAs charged by the quarter or by the half year. Your car insurance might be every half year or once a year, but add them all up, figure out how much money do I spend typically in a typical month out of the year. Average them all together, so it's a good solid number. If I just had that much cash flow, I'd be wealthy. All my time would be freed up because I'd tell my boss to go to hell and I'd quit my job and I'd be done. I'd work for myself or do whatever the hell I want at that point. In fact, if you can get to that point and your time is freed up, well, you could probably double that, probably in a very short time. So they say once you're out of the rat race, you probably won't fall back into the rat race again and have to work another job because you know all the stuff it takes to keep that going. It's much easier now to get another rental property in addition to the ones you have to have even more cash flow. Now you've got extra spending money, right? And so a lot of the people, once they reach that one out of the rat race, they can probably, if they just keep working out a few more years, they'll be 10 times out of the rat race. They'll have more money than they know what to do with. But they've also gotten over a tremendous amount of emotional baggage and stuff that some of these things our parents taught us and they didn't know any better, or our society or our schools. Also, movies and TVs sometimes train us wrong about things. I remember the worst movie that had an effect on me that I had to consciously unwind the damage was the movie Other People's Money, starring Danny DeVito, who ironically is one of my favorite actors. He's such a character, such an unusual guy, but he plays the stingiest business guy who's always trying to get other people's money. It's all about taking from other people, right? It's hilarious, but it puts a bad idea in your mind. That's not how business really is. That guy is a small-time guy who's going to jail pretty soon. He doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's a perfect definition for wealth, especially in the finance sense of just it's not just a lump of cash. It's a lot more than that. And you did a great job explaining that. All right. Well, listen, Paul, I really appreciate you coming on the Get Wealth podcast. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I learned something new. It seems like every time. Is there anything that you want to plug as far as websites or things you got going on that you want the listeners to know about?
Oh yeah, good question. Not really. I guess I would just say get hooked up with your local real estate investment organizations. They're called RIAs, REIA. Like in Arizona, it's the AZREIA, AZREIA. But every state and many countries have these RIAs. It's just a bunch of people like you and me getting together and either wanting to do real estate investing or actually doing it. And the strange realization I had after I went to a bunch of these RIAs, not only is everybody sharing their knowledge and encouraging each other, but I finally figured out probably a third of the people in those meetings are millionaires, literally, because they've been doing it for years. But they look just like you and me. They talk the same, they eat the same food, they wear the same clothes. It's like, there's no border between the rich people and us. There really isn't any obstacle like that. I think in some countries there may be borders between who you can be based on where you're born, who your parents were. America doesn't have that obstacle. If you do the right things, you will be a multi-millionaire. You just need to do it. And if you fail, you need to get back up and do it again. Learn from it. Get over the emotional pain of it. Do it again. Ask for help. Ask people who are better than you for advice. How can I make this never happen again? Or how can I make this bad deal become a good deal? Can you think of anything to save the day on this deal that's going south? It's scary when you have a deal going south. You want to hide under the bed, right? But don't do that. No, it's okay. You can admit it. You can get help. And very often your friends will be able to save the day. who know a lot more than you. And then when you do that, you learn a tremendous amount. It's so great to have people like this that want to help you literally, because the truth is, at least in real estate investing, each person is not a threat to the other person. If I teach you everything I know, you're not going to take things away from me. I can still do everything I need to do and make tons of money. You can make money and I can make money. There's no problem there. And the point is brought home. If people play the Cash Flow 101 board game, this is a board game you can order online. I think Amazon sells it. Cash Flow 101. It's really a good board game. Definitely find a way to play that. There are even meetups like the Alpha Cash Flow meetup on meetup.com. Every week, those guys get together and play cash flow board game just because they love it so much. It takes like an hour and a half to play, I think. But your goal in there is to buy properties and sell properties and get out of the rat race. And so the game is over when everybody's gotten out of the rat race. So it's not like Monopoly where you're fighting against the other people. No, not at all. Everyone is working together to get out of the rat race. It's genius. It helps program your brain to think the right way about money.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
That's so important.
Money is not what we think it is from being poor and middle class. Money is different than you were taught. You got to learn how the rich people think. That's my biggest message. And you can do that with the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. And there's a lot of other books out there too. That the knowledge is freely available if people will just pay attention.
All right. That's a lot of good information there. And I encourage people to go back and listen to this twice because there's a lot in there to take and learn from. And I really appreciate you coming on the show today, man. Thanks.
Absolutely. It's been fun being here.
All right, everybody. Get wealthy.
Yeah, you too, man.